everybody. Welcome to Tales from the Trails, and I want to welcome Zach. Zach, if you don't mind, just introducing yourself.
Hey Drew, thank you for having me. My name is Zachary Banks. I'm a 12 times certified Salesforce architect. I am currently at Link Logistics, where I am a senior architect technology. I oversee all the engineering and architecture on the Salesforce platform. I also happen to be a Salesforce MVP user group leader and just spend way too much time in the ecosystem.
Awesome. Well, we'll definitely get into that, your Salesforce technology background, but I just want to acknowledge the high level because this is representative of a lot of company situations. You work for a real company that does real stuff that needs a real technologist as a part of the team to make sure that their business technology is handled appropriately. If you don't mind just starting off with telling us, like, what is the business? So something we say is that every business has a mission, some value that they're bringing to the world. What is the business's mission? And then we can go into your role.
Yeah, so Link Logistics provides last mile delivery storage locations for our customers. A lot of our customers are actually what we call like mom and pop shops. So a
Okay.
majority of our customer base is those smaller customers that need storage for different inventory to really enable them to do that last mile logistics delivery. And then, of course, we do have those big customers. I'm not saying we necessarily have these, like when you think of an Amazon or a Home
Right.
Depot, they also have needs to store stuff in a location that can quickly be procured and delivered to customers. So, our business provides space for our customers to support their customer needs.
Awesome. So the image that I have in my head, and you can tell me if this is accurate, is like a temporary storage spot where a delivery driver of some sort could put some package into it and then someone else can come scan into it. Is that an aspect of the business, or do I have it right or not really?
So our customers can use it really in different ways. I'm sure if we have folks with an inventory system like that's something they can totally do. So one good way to think about it is Link acts as a landlord for
Okay.
commercial real estate, and
Okay.
so we rent out our space to these customers, and there's certain things they can or cannot do. Of course, I'm not an expert on everything they
Sure.
can or cannot do, but it really enables them to have the space to do what they need to do.
Gotcha. One thing that I imagine about logistics is that it is a very detail oriented and operations heavy sort of business. So keeping track of everything is essentially the name of the game in logistics. Is that a fair sort of assessment of the space?
Yep. So one of our core values is to know your customer. And so with that, knowing our customers, there's lots of data points that are very important. So of course, knowing all the people we have leases with. So a majority of
Hmm.
our businesses renting out and selling leases to these different tenants, understanding which tenant is occupying which building,
Mm,
who's our lease contacts, who's our tenant contacts, who's our billing contacts. And with that, there's just many different operational points that people wouldn't necessarily think on the like front end of this business company, but Link recognized the need to put a significant investment to really know our customers better.
gotcha. Okay, so Link obviously has made investing in technology a priority. They've got a 12 times Salesforce-certified MVP on the team. So what do you think the rationale in investing in technology is, bringing you on board, putting such an investment into the technology stack through Salesforce?
Yeah, Link is making it very clear they are being a trailblazer with their
Mhm.
investment, and making such a large investment in their technology operations really enables them to better support their customers. We're putting money to work on ourselves to better support our customers' needs so we can start to anticipate what they need before they even come to us.
Gotcha. I like how you threw in that Salesforce terminology in your explanation. If you're gonna be on Salesforce, you gotta be a trailblazer. I think that's part of the requirement. Well,
Definitely.
I know you're working on super valuable stuff for Link. I won't dive into the specifics of it, but why don't you tell me a little bit more about your personal story of becoming so involved in the Salesforce ecosystem. What was that like for you?
Yeah, so I actually just got a great blog on the Salesforce.com website published where it talks about this at a very high level, but I'll dive into a bit more detail now. So I got started in the Salesforce ecosystem about 10 years ago. So I was fresh out of college
Mm,
at that point, and I got a job in a call center, and they happened to be using Service Cloud for calls, emails, and chat.
mm,
So I was providing support to the customers of that company using Service Cloud, and occasionally I would do a little bit of enhancements. Like go create an email template, go provide suggestions on this workflow, update these status values, nothing major. Then I moved from New England to Austin, Texas. I joined this startup company. So it's a lot smaller than this company I was just at. And they had a Salesforce instance that was more outdated than what I
mm.
had just experienced. So they were using Service Cloud as well, but their instance of Service Cloud, and this is going to date me a little bit, but they were still getting warnings about Agent Console, which was like created in 9 or something. So it was a very old instance. And so I, being the cocky, like 22, 23-year-old at the time, I basically went to the director of support and said, hey, I feel like I could make this better. And I loved working with that director. And she basically said, prove it, and she just gave me system admin access like that day. So there goes this like 22, 23-year-old running around with sysadmin with
Wow.
nobody really helping them. That was almost like 8 years ago at this point. And so I didn't have anyone within the company that I could ask Salesforce questions to. They
Mm,
didn't have anyone really working on that. And so I turned to the community. So I started
mm.
going to Salesforce Saturdays where I ran into a lot of friends that I still talk to today, like Nadine Lisbon, Scott Lukart. They're also like MVPs and on a whole bunch of Salesforce ecosystem stuff. And they helped me in person walk through and solve these problems. And I just kept going to these networking events.
Mhm.
And from there, I really found the value of the Trailblazer community because I was able to learn and I eventually got pointed to Trailhead and I was able to continue my education. Eventually, I was able to find new jobs from within the community just by networking with different people I met at these different events. And my career just took off from there. I've worked at a video game company that partnered with Disney and Hasbro for Service Cloud. Then I became a Salesforce consultant for a while, where I was a dev lead. I worked on quite a few big name accounts, not to name them, but very large implementations. And then after that, and most recently, before Link Logistics, I worked at PayPal, where I was the manager of Salesforce architecture. So I had a small team of architects that I worked with to really help with the business architecture side of enterprise architecture. So they're very much a fan of like the BizBox framework. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. That's the role I left PayPal at. But before that, at PayPal, I was also a product manager and portfolio manager, where I also managed the Salesforce contract to some extent and also delivered a lot of
Wow.
value for PayPal. Logistics, overseeing engineering and architecture on Salesforce.
That's such a good story of 10 years ago, you got introduced to Salesforce by happenstance because the company that you were working at was on Salesforce. Took
Yep.
some personal initiative, so that was step one. You got a small break in the sense that they took a chance on you by just allowing you to do some work on the org, even though you weren't really qualified to do so at the time, and just built on it from there. Obviously, over the last 10 years, you've gotten certifications all along the way to have gotten to 12. You got MVP. I understand you're in possession of a golden hoodie. Is that correct?
Yes, I
Uh,
am currently in the middle of moving, otherwise I'd show you it.
okay.
But I do have a golden hoodie. I got it during the pandemic at the World Tour, Austin, Texas. Sarah Franklin gave it to me. It was such a big honor. It's up on YouTube. Maybe I'll give you all the links to it after
Nice.
this.
Yeah.
Yes, I got the golden hoodie because during not only the pandemic, but at that point, it had been a few years where I had taken over the Austin, Texas user group.
Mhm.
And I really helped revitalize it to where the biggest meeting I had 100 people or 99 people show up. I counted and I couldn't find the 100th person. Maybe I'll just say there are 100 for simplicity. But I really helped the community stay connected in Austin, Texas. And it was really cool because I saw people that were like very similar to me when I got started. They had no
Mhm.
idea what Salesforce was, and I've seen their career grow in similar ways.
That's so awesome. I think the last few questions we can really go into talking to those people who might be interested in the Salesforce career path. And I'll just say that our last two hires coincidentally have a very similar career path in that our most recent hire here at Bandjax was a person who I believe about 2 years ago started working at a company on Salesforce, totally took it upon themselves to get certifications to understand Salesforce, and their company allowed them to work on it, and they were very aggressive and persistent about wanting to work in the Salesforce ecosystem and totally convinced us through their effort that they belonged working professionally in the Salesforce ecosystem. And the hire before that was similar in the sense that they took a lot of personal initiative, went out and got those certifications and did that work on their own. That's really awesome. So one question I have for you is what advice would you have for people who are considering going this direction as a career path?
Yeah, so like how your person that you hired
Mhm,
recently took the initiative. I've seen some people get discouraged because they're not getting beaten down with job offers anymore, or
mhm,
they're realizing it's a lot of work and it's going to be a job doing a
mhm,
career change because that's what it is. But it's very important that if you decide you want to do this, take it serious, wake up every day, treating it like a job. Doesn't mean you have to be on every single day, but you need to make an effort. You need to
mhm,
show up, go to these events when you're there, try and go out of your comfort zone. Like you're now at this event. In order for somebody to get a job, they need to be aware of you
mhm,
in order to offer you a job. Basic marketing. If you don't let people know of your services, how are people going to say, hey, I want to hire you or I want to buy your services from you? So it's very much you need to take this very seriously, showing up to these different events, but also in your free time. It doesn't have to be a lot of time. I remember back in 2015, 2016, when I started studying for my admin certification, I would, in between phone calls in a contact center, I would just take index cards. Trailhead wasn't that developed at the time. I did use it for a few things, but it still wasn't the most amazing thing back then. It's gotten really
yeah,
powerful now. But just between phone calls, I would do a Google search. I would look up different terms. I would write it down. I would study, and then I would go for the exam. And I thankfully passed that one on the first time. But it all boils down to you need to take it serious. And if you put in hard work, you'll be rewarded.
I love that, I love that, and you mentioned the networking aspect of it, going to conferences. I actually met you at a conference. That was a great time. Do you have any conferences on the horizon?
Yes, I wanted to go to Midwest Dream In. It might not work out this year, but I am going to Dreamforce. So I want to be very clear, people listening, you don't have to go to Dreamforce like, to get a job in Salesforce. It does help a lot, don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
Like it's the ultimate like networking conference for Salesforce professionals. I am going to Dreamforce. If you're listening to this, I'd recommend going to like Trailblazer community groups, finding your local user group, finding a Dream In. A Dream In event conference ticket is what? $50 to $250 somewhere in there. If you volunteer, they often give it to you for free, and volunteering could just be checking people in or stuffing bags with swag, or even finding a Salesforce Saturday. That's free. Just going to
yeah,
a coffee shop and talking to people about Salesforce. But I am going to Dreamforce, and I think it's super valuable to do.
yeah. I would actually say that for new people coming in looking for jobs, the smaller events might be more valuable than Dreamforce. Dreamforce is amazing. It's a blast. It's such an event, such an atmosphere. But those smaller events, you have a lot of opportunities to have deep conversations and build relationships that I think, especially if you're on a budget and you can go to these free events, this is a good way to start to network.
Exactly. I think Dreamforce is a great investment, but you don't need it to start
Hmm.
out. It does help if you do go to it, don't get me wrong. But there's something about that intimate, like learning people, like building a relationship with them. And then if they have a job, they're going to remember somebody locally that they've met a few times at a coffee shop who's looking than somebody they've never met before.
Yeah, totally. Okay, we'll give you one more question. We've got a lot of great conversation. Okay, so now we're going to look at this not from the perspective of a potential Salesforce career, but from a business standpoint. You've worked in a lot of different businesses on Salesforce in all different scenarios. if you're a business just getting into Salesforce, how should you be thinking about this? And is there a different way to think about it if you're, say, a medium-sized business versus a large business? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so just to set the stage for different businesses I've worked in and I've configured or engineered or whatever their Salesforce instance, it's been in the healthcare industry, the video game industry, the cybersecurity industry, the financial industry, and now I'm in the real estate industry.
Is that all of them? That's pretty much all of them.
There's a lot. It's such a great tool that's entirely customizable to your business needs. Chances are, if you have a need in business, you're not necessarily reinventing the wheel here. Somebody has probably done it before at this point in time, unless you're launching an entirely new product, but then your operations are still pretty much the same on how you recognize revenue and reconcile your books and all that. But anyways, I'd recommend first talking to Salesforce, of course, and know Salesforce will happily sell you the licenses to get going, but no, Salesforce is not a one and done. Just because you bought this software doesn't mean all your problems are going to be solved. You need to understand what you want to get out of it. And so that goes into what's the KPIs you need to hit? What are your pain points? What are the capabilities you want to mature? And then once you really understand like your business vision and strategy, then you can start to identify this is what I want to focus on from a very high like executive vision. And then you can really start targeting Salesforce to be, oh, I have an issue with my marketing funnel, so I should be expanding lead management. Have a conversation with your Salesforce account rep. Be like, hey, what do you have that can address these? Because they have something, I promise you that, and not to ramble them all off. And chances are they'll recommend you something, and then you should consider a Salesforce partner or bring in resources. I'm sure you would love people to renew Salesforce partners every single year. But there's cost differences when you hire a full-time employee versus when you hire a contractor. There's tax differences. They have people sometimes on bench, and there's a faster ramp time because they're already like vetted professionals. But you should also consider full-time resources, not to bash it. I guess talk to Salesforce, figure out what you want, and consider a partner and full-time resources.
Gotcha. Figure out what it is you're trying to accomplish. And based on all the industries that you listed off and what both of us know about Salesforce, you could accomplish basically whatever you want to as a business on Salesforce. And then how are you going to accomplish it? And I think us both on the call at the same time is a good sort of representation of your options. There are a lot of good reasons to invest in internal talent and build up an internal team like you guys are doing. And I think that's amazing. Just to plug Banjax, we're a third-party consultancy. People can call us for extra help. And oftentimes, if people are trying to accomplish big enough projects, they may need to do both. They need to have internal resources like you could be in a position to be contracting out. And so I think it all depends on the circumstances. But yeah, thank you so much, Zach, for your perspective. And thanks so much for joining the pod.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Drew. This was a lot of fun.
All right. Well, have a good day. Thanks.
Thanks.
All right. Bye.
Bye.